Good day everyone. We are from the Dauntless of class ABM 11B and today we will present to you our research study entitled Unity Above Diversity, an ethnography on the impact of Liceo's Catholic education to its non-Catholic learners. To start this presentation, let us first discuss the background of the study.
Students who are non-Catholics have always been a part of the student population of every Catholic schools. Now, religious people from different traditions encounter each other to an extent that they thrive in a single environment, choosing whether to compete or to unite. This prompted the researchers to examine the growing presence and place of students who are not Catholics in the perspective of the Catholic education offered by the Catholic school. The researchers observed that Catholic teachings bother the beliefs and faith as well as the social interaction and academic performance from this other sects in such a way that they contradicts what they believe in. This is the rationale behind this research. First, to further investigate on the effects and impact of the Catholic education to the non-Catholic learners of the institution of Liceo de La Salle, specifically the grade 11 students. The study seeks to give aid to the non-Catholics to cope up and adjust with the Catholic teachings being imparted by the school. Next is the statement of the problem.
This research aims to give answer to how non-Catholics are affected by the Catholic education provided by Liceo de La Salle, specifically to answer the main research question and the following set of questions. How does the Catholic education provided by Liceo de La Salle affect its non-Catholic learners, specifically the grade 11 students? What topic or areas of Catholic teachings do non-Catholic perceive to have impacts to their holistic development in terms of faith, social interaction, and academic performance? How do non-Catholics manage the recognition and application of Catholic teaching to activities that requires Catholicism? How do non-Catholics cope with the possible effects of these Catholic teachings? And lastly, what definite intervention do non-Catholic needs to adjust with the Catholic-centered education?
Now, we have here the conceptual framework. Please refer to page 3 of your document. This diagram shows the relationship between the 5 variables of this investigation. The whole research revolves on how the independent variable affect the control variables. To be more specific, we are focusing on how the Catholic education, which teaches about doctrines, faith, tradition, and etc., affect the grade 11 non-Catholic learners of Liceo de La Salle. On what specific aspects? We have 3: faith, academic performance, and social interactions, our independent variables. This data would all be gathered through our moderating variable, which are the semi-structured interviews. However, possibilities of harm, confidentiality, and deception may arise and affect our results, and these 3 will be considered our confounding variables.
Now for the scope and limitations. In this study, the researchers mainly focuses on how the Catholic education, specifically its teachings, affects the grade 11 non-Catholic students of Liceo de La Salle. With such grade 11 non-Catholic learners were selected to be the respondents in the study. As we all know, they have experienced some circumstances and challenges when it comes to the Catholic environment of the university. This was being done in a qualitative nature by means of interview. The limitation of the study is that it is only constrained to 12 non-Catholic students of any strand of Liceo de La Salle, and individual views and opinions with regards to their own religions, And the researchers prepared some interview questions ahead of time, so they encountered unprepared responses, and has only a small sample size, and we cannot generalize the whole research because it is highly dependent to the responses of the participants in the study.
Now let's move on to the significance of the study. So the results of these investigations are beneficial to the following. First, to the researchers. The research leads to a better understanding within the members. Both sides are considered, keeping everything unbiased and just. Second, to non-Catholics. The investigation results to a deeper understanding towards their situation. Third, parents and guardians. The results of the research give parents right knowledge about the present diversities in the school, especially towards religion. Fourth, to Liceo de La Salle Senior High School. The study raises awareness to everyone with regards to the impact of Catholic education, especially to the non-Catholic pupils of the school. Fifth, to the cultural change. Although many students feel supported and included within the community, there are still learners who are not directly supported, but the results of the research recognize those feelings as supplementary to their overall positive experience. And lastly, to the future studies. The investigation results to new ideas and assumptions for other researchers.
Next is the review of related literature. This study explored the institutional environments that influence Catholic students' spiritual and religious development at a non-Catholic institution by examining the student experience. Catholic students attend a wide variety of institutional types ranging in religious affiliation, including Catholic and non-Catholic. This review of related literature was used by the researchers as a guide and references for their research study.
Next is the ethical considerations. Ethical considerations is a part of the study wherein it answers on how non-Catholic students are being affected by the Catholic education of Liceo de La Salle. Possible problems of harm. The respondents are offended by the series of questions that being asked to them. The chosen schedule for the interviews bother them as they have important things to do and accomplish. Problems of harm are being handled by harsh words are avoided, especially when asking sensitive questions related to religion and faith-based inquiries. Consultations are convenience sampling technique. The respondents Next. Problems of confidentiality. Uncertainties within the surroundings and confidentiality of identities and respondents. Problems of confidentiality are being handled by choosing a proper venue and carefulness in sensitive questions. Next. Problems of deception. The respondents do not keep honesty in answering the questions, which lead to more biased results. Problems of deception are being handled by asking direct and straightforward questions and getting second opinion.
Now, we have here the different research designs utilized in the study. So, obviously, we have 4: the qualitative research design, an ethnography, non-experimental design, and exploratory design. Qualitative, as understood, deals with non-numerical data. This study's results are very highly dependent on narratives and wordy responses of the participants. Second, ethnography tackles culture and individual understandings of persons. As religion is the main focus of this study, and religion is part of Filipino culture, it is appropriate to utilize this kind of design. Obviously, this study is not utilizing experiments since no experiments were conducted, obviously. However, we conducted series of interviews to collect information which later on was interpreted and analyzed together to compile a specific summary and conclusion. Lastly, exploratory. Since only a few researches were made beforehand, this study would lead to further discovery and exploration of insights, new information, and understanding of this subject matter.
The next one is the respondents of the study. Population. The population was restricted within Liceo de La Salle Senior High School students. Sampling techniques. Convenience and purposive sampling techniques. The researchers use convenience sampling technique where the respondent was dependent on the student's availability and their disposition towards the interview periods. And also, they use purposive sampling techniques that involves identification and selection of individuals that are proficient and well-informed with the phenomenon of interest. Sample size is 12, as there were 6 researchers in the group and each member has 2 participants to interview. And lastly, the time or period of involvement, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. and 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. from October 2 to October 16, 2018.
Now for the instruments to be used in a study. The instruments used in the study were the structured interview and observations. These approaches used confidentiality and was offered the researchers explained the process of collecting data through unbiased researches, the value with both positive and negative experience. The responses were taken through note-taking and voice recording and undergone interpretation and data analysis.
Since this research followed a qualitative design, the main procedure was by conducting interviews to selected respondents. The thematic data followed an analysis through coding, which is interpreted to conduct a result.
Again, in order to gather this data, semi-structured interviews were conducted beforehand. So, we are expecting here to collect worthy themes to be interpreted for the results. So, we have here Table 1, which talks about Catholic teachings perceived to affect the holistic development of a non-Catholic. By the way, if you can see the table presented here, please refer to page 22 of the official document. So again, the results presented here are categorized into 2. First are prayers and Catholic practices. Under the prayers, we have memorized and repetitive Catholic prayers and intercessions. So, out of these 2, the first one is the most response gathered from the respondents. It is because they say that they are not allowed to memorize or to repeat their prayers in their religion. Also, whenever praying, they believe that prayers should be directly presented to God and not through intercessions from different other holy beings or whatever. Second, Catholic practices, which involves the sign of the cross and the honoring and veneration of Mary and the saints. So obviously, non-Catholics do not have sign of the cross because this is only done by Catholics for identification. And also because Catholics are proud of the cross of Christ. That is what they believe in. And also, we give honor and respect to the Virgin Mary and to the holy saints. These 2 are contradictory to what a non-Catholic believes because this is not part of their doctrine. And they believe that these two are not part of the Bible. So again, as a summary, the following teachings have possible effects to a non-Catholic: memorized and repetitive Catholic prayers, intercessions of the Virgin Mary and the saints, sign of the cross, and honoring and veneration of Virgin Mary and saints. Moving on, the second table talks about the effects of Catholic education to a non-Catholic's faith. So we have presented three most responses, and we have unaffected faith, doubtful faith, and faith affected by surroundings. We have presented here a positive response, as most of our respondents said that Catholic teachings does not affect their faith. However, a respondent still said that he or she is not sure of which one to believe because two sides have both correct and distinct information about God. Lastly, since it is obvious that Liceo de La Salle is grounded in Catholicism, so Catholics are almost everywhere, and because of that, this respondent have said that his or her faith can be affected. Overall, since most of the respondents answered that they have unaffected faith, we could come up with the conclusion that Catholic teachings does not affect the faith of a non-Catholic. Third, this table talks about the effects of Catholic teachings to non-Catholic learners in terms of their social interactions. Again, we have presented three most answered responses, and that are unaffected social life, friends with Catholics, and giving distance. So, another positive response is displayed on this table, as most of the respondents have said that Catholic teachings never affect never bother their social interactions with others. Some respondents even said that they considered Catholics as friends despite difference in beliefs and religion. However, one respondent have shared that he or she is giving distance to a specific persons due to a contradicting belief. And because of this contradicting belief, her social life is now decreasing, and he or she spends most of her time in the library. So, however, again, we consider the overall results, and that is unaffected social life. So, table 4 here talks about the effects of Catholic teachings to a non-Catholic's academic performance. This time, we will talk about how a non-Catholic student do or perform in his or her own CLE subjects. So, we have, again, three responses which are grouped into good academic performance, unaffected academics, and accepts Catholic teachings for academic purposes. So, we have here another positive response as saying that most of our respondents have done well in their CLE classes this first quarter and have got very high marks, especially in CLE. So from this, with their high grades, a good academic performance is present despite a diversity in the teachings that are being taught to them. So, other responses did not specify their performance in school, but have said that Catholic teachings does not affect their studies at all. Like for example, our respondent number 9 have said it does not affect my academic performance. So, from this, despite the Catholic teachings are different from what they believe in, they are still able to live and continue going to school. And here, a respondent have said that he or she has to accept these teachings just so she could perform well in school. So, these Catholic teachings, again, though contradictory, are still accepted so that she could perform well in her CLE subject. Overall, good academic performance is still present among the respondents. So, conclusion is made that Catholic teachings does not affect academics, but rather non-Catholics still manage to perform well in their subjects.
So to continue the results, let's move on to the table 5. So the table 5 is non-Catholics management to application of Catholicism. So we have a first response, observations. So according to respondent number 3, well, I just remain silent doing observations. Second is silence from respondent number 8. She said that I keep myself quiet when I sit or stand. So both of them, respondent number 3 and respondent number 8, said that they are just remaining silent every time there are Catholic practices or prayers being done. So they just do their thing. Next, respect. According to respondent number 11, standing up and listening for respect to them and the Mass. And lastly, inactive Mass participation. According to respondent number 5, I don't attend the Mass, but I do attend Mass rather, but I don't do what Catholics do during the Mass. So overall, it seems that they are just doing their thing, but on the other hand, they are respecting what Catholics do every time they do their way of worship, and of course they remain silent, and they're always there to understand and to respect what Catholics do. Next, for table 6, non-Catholics' coping mechanism towards Catholic teachings. So we have 3: respect, learn, and being open-minded. So respect. According to respondent number 4, I don't mess with your beliefs. I know my limitations because that is respect. Learn, from respondent number 1. I learn a lot of things about them, which helps me to be more open with their beliefs. And lastly, being open-minded, from respondent number 6. I don't think transferring here in Liceo makes a big impact to me. I just don't mind it. So overall, they just respect, learn, and they open their minds for them to understand the different teachings that Catholic has. Lastly, table number 7 for the results, possible interventions to help non-Catholics adjust. So we have respect, acceptance, professional guidance, and socializing. So respondent number 3, for respect, we do efforts in respecting your own practices and beliefs. We expect the same respect we show to you. Number 2 is acceptance. From respondent number 1, just acceptance. So they just accept what Catholics does. And for respondent number 9, professional guidance. So I suggest talking to your teacher about it, especially your advisor, because they believe that the teacher has the capacity to advise us and to counsel us if ever there are things that bothers us. And lastly, socializing, from respondent number 6. I will share what I've learned to those who experienced the same things as me. So those are our results.
For the statement of the problem number 1, they were categorized as prayers and Catholic practices. The most common responses are sign of the cross, memorizing and repeating prayers, Mary, saints, and intercessions. For the statement of the problem number 2, the responses were categorized in unaffected, doubtful, and affected brought by surrounding factors. Most of the respondents were convinced that they were doing observations, being silent, in active mass participation and respect.
For the statement of the problem number 3, it expresses the coping mechanisms of the non-Catholic respondents to adjust in the Catholic environment of the school. Respect was always reiterated in most responses. The participants were also eager to learn, make new knowledge, and understand Catholic aspects to help them adjust better in the institution. A unique response was being open-minded and following a self-acceptance over the diversities present in students' surrounding. For the statement of the problem number 4, the different things in the non-Catholic respondents went for them to better adjust in the school. Respect was the most responses, as you can see, which clearly showed that is the most important aspect to embrace the individual differences, especially in religion. Acceptance of diversities was also suggested by many of the the respondents. Another was seeking professional guidance either from parents, teachers, counselors to further educate the non-Catholic student about Catholicism. Also allowing the non-Catholics to socialize and as answered by the respondent would help them cope up with the Catholic setting of the institution.
So for the conclusion, statement of the problem number 1. The non-Catholic students of Liceo de La Salle has been immersed to an environment of Catholicism and were able to observe multiple areas of Catholicism that affect their holistic development. So the first that affects their holistic development is doing the sign of the cross. Second is honoring the Blessed Virgin Mary in the saints. Third is asking intercessions, and the last one is reciting or memorized and repetitive prayers. Statement of the problem number 2. In Liceo de La Salle, it is very common to do or attend institutional masses and the daily prayers. With regards to this, some non-Catholic students are just inactive in mass participation. Some non-Catholic students are also attend masses, but they just keep silence and not reciting Catholic prayers in order to respect on their own religions. Observations and respects are the main response of the respondents, which is highly common with non-Catholic students.
Now moving on to the statement of the problem number 3. How do non-Catholics cope up with the possible effects of these Catholic teachings? Which leads us to the overall conclusions that it is important for a non-Catholic to cope up and adjust within the unfamiliar faith system, which leads them to become open-minded in terms of their teachings, and also in order for them to gain knowledge and learn, study about Catholicism, and the most important of all is to respect the beliefs of a Catholic, since Liceo de La Salle is a Catholic institution. Now moving on to the statement problem number 4. What definite intervention do non-Catholics need to adjust with the Catholic-centered education? First of all, non-Catholics need acceptance and respect for each other in order to embrace the diversities despite of the differences of the religions. And some also need to seek professional guidance like counselors, teachers, in order for them to deeply understand the Catholic teachings of the school and to socialize with others.
As an overall conclusion, we will look back on our main research question, and that is, how does the Catholic teaching offered by Liceo de La Salle affect its non-Catholic learners? So, in this part, we will use tables 2, 3, and 4 to conclude into a specific response to this question. And we have positive responses about this, as these are the most responses from our participants. So, in terms of faith, there is no bothered faith. And keeping unaffected social interactions with those people around them. Also, our respondents were able to keep a good academic performance. We can conclude from these three that Catholic teachings does not bring any negative effects towards a non-Catholic learner. So, to further explain this, Catholic teachings motivates our non-Catholic learners so that they could be able to continue living and continue adjusting in the Catholic setting of the school. Again, to conclude this study, Catholic teachings does not bring bad effects to our non-Catholic learners. A positive result, and that's all.
So moving on, let's have the implications. So a variety of different Catholic practices and programs can be developed and implemented. So first, non-Catholic students. This research aided Catholic and non-Catholic students to respect each other in terms of different religion and prevent dilemma and discrimination. So for faculty and administrators of Liceo de La Salle, teachers and administrators showed view of co-equal who being valued expertise that involves the development of knowledge based on educational practices and strategies.
Moving on to the recommendations. To further improve the whole research itself, it is suggesting to focus on a single non-Catholic religion alone. It is also possible to change the scope either to a new educational level or a specific track or strand. Increasing the sample size is also recommended in order to come up with more general results. Try another research design or a new sampling technique. Teachers, school administrators, or adult constituents of the school could be the next participants of this research as well.
And there you have it. Again, we are the Dauntless Co of Class ABM 11B, proudly representing our research project, Unity Above Diversity, an ethnography on Liceo's Catholic education to its non-Catholic learners. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless us all.